so many companies just say, nah, he looked all right. I knew a mate who knew him and he says says good things about him. But, people will say something, but you won't necessarily get the right answer. You only get that answer when you get the true picture of the context and how they've actually answered those questions as well. That will take away so many of your issues.
Hello, everybody. Gavin Coyle here. I'm the Gaffer. We're back again with a superb guest. I want you to think about the fact that you're working mad hours every day and you don't really have time to think about who your next employee or who your most important employee is going to be and how you're going to profile that person to make sure that that person is the correct fit for your company. Is that a case of ringing, one of the so-called bigger recruitment agencies and put your trust into that model of a business where, it's a kind of a churn of CVs and hopefully, they have the right spec, or maybe in most cases, and we found this in the past, is where they're basically asking you to give the spec. So even though the spec is in your head, if it's not extracted properly and if the culture and the structure and the expectations of where your business is going to go is not put in the right context, that this next important employment of the next person into your business could potentially bring your business down if you don't do it right. And I've seen this, and we've seen this in the industry, in construction industry, across the board, where people become disenfranchised with the whole recruitment model because they've brought in this so-called big person who's going to bring the business onto the next level, only to find within 3 to 4 months that they've actually made the biggest mistake of their career, and they get demotivated, they get a loss of confidence in the system, and then they turn back to this whole, well, look, I'm not going to get anyone better than myself, so I'm just going to crack on myself and keep things going the way they are, and I'm going to go back to little old me, because me thinking that I could have an extra 4 or 5 people or that superhero to come into my business to bring me on to the next level is not there. Well, my next guest will tell you that that's not true, and he's got an amazing business that helps construction owners of all sizes, and he's been there and he's lived it, and he's not your mainstream recruitment person or a headhunter. He's the type of person I want on my board of directors, for example, even though he wouldn't be a fully paid up member of my board of directors, but he's the man I'm going to call and say, hey, head of recruitment, here's what I need, here's what I think what I need. And Scott Lechley has a business that will change your business for the better. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. That was very kind. It was a decent opening.
Well, I was kind of... we like to give value to people in the podcast. And, when we talk about value, one of the biggest values you could ever probably bring to an organization is a great employee. And, a lot of people sing from the rooftops about how great they are, about bringing in great people. But you and your story resonated with me. I have an outsourcing business, but I understand the complexity of trying to find great people, especially in today's market when there's a lack of top quality people and the supply and demand is very much skewed. Tell us what it is that is the magic sauce that you do and how you're different from the rest.
When I say be honest, I think most people think they're honest or they are honest, but it's the warts and all side of things. Everybody's got a superpower. Everybody's got a skill set. But it's just trying to find those super skills and skill sets that can be merged into the company that you're trying to, not trying to put that person into, but get an individual that's a perfect fit, personality. They're just the way that they see the world as well. That's that whole, somebody that's the right fit isn't automatically the obvious fit. It's just digging below, finding out what the people are about, finding out about, what's important to them, and find out about how you believe they fit into a business. So it's to find that, you need to have asked a lot of questions. You need to speak with those that are making the decisions to bring these people in, but also speaking to the candidate who's coming into that business. It's as much about him choosing them as them choosing him. And it's just I think it's a feeling a lot of the time you get to the bottom of somebody. You ask them enough questions, and then you'll find the real person in there, and you'll find that something that's the connection between those two guys. What will make him that slightly different, but ultimately the best candidate for that company.
So let's take Gavin, the small little, I've just set up an electrical company. I'm doing pretty well for myself. It's just myself and my wife. And, we have an accountant and, that's us pretty much. We might have maybe somebody doing administration in the office. But pretty much we've been keeping it lean because we don't know where things are going to go. I'm getting to the stage now where things are getting on top of me, and I'm not... I'm starting to miss things. I'm starting to, not capture quality issues. I'm starting to miss out on finer points of contracts. Health and safety is becoming a bit of a burden because, it's just more and more paperwork. At what point should I start looking at profiling the business for the need to bring in and, a person that's going to add value to my business? And who normally would that first person be when things are starting to move in an upward trajectory?
I think there's a particular person. I think a lot of the time you become that person. There's certain parts of your job that you're very, very good at. There's certain parts of the job that you can do extremely well, and certain parts of the job that you really enjoy. But on the flip side of that, there's stuff you don't like doing. So it's identifying those areas where you need to supplement your super strengths with somebody else. And what you might think is the ideal candidate or the ideal person that you need for your business might not necessarily be that person. You're going to have to look hard. You're the only one that knows what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you've got to be honest with yourself in terms of are you the best person to do, say for example, the health and safety? Is that what you find enjoyable? Are you good at it? Do you understand it? Do you have all the answers? Or would it be beneficial to bring somebody else in that does do that? Is there something else that other person can do as well? Are they administrative? Are they very much of an eye for a detail type of person? It's somebody that complements the skill set that you've got. It's looking for somebody that will fill in those gaps. So, being honest and working out what is the most important, especially with the first person that you're bringing in, it's quite a significant moment, I suppose you could call it as well, that you're going out there and it's very important to you. This is your baby. This is your business. And you want somebody that will respect that. But what we've also got to remember is that, they're coming into something that you've built for a specific reason, whether it be, to, earn cash or because you want to just generate something for yourself or build something. So you want somebody that appreciates that. But you've also got to recognize that, they need to come to work. So you need to look after them. You need to provide them with, the work that they want to do. And this is where that whole putting two people together is important. So you can describe to me what you want or describe to me where it's missing, and then we'll come up with a solution. And that's the biggest difference in terms of what we try and do. It's finding a solution to a problem, but it's a problem that you may not know you've got. But by asking those questions to delve deeper and get into your psyche a little bit and to work out what that is, that's where I think sometimes the skill set is missing elsewhere.
That's what I love about your business model, is that you're actually looking at the overall business and you're taking a vested interest in the overall business and the health of the business, as opposed to one role, I just need to fill that role and it's up to the business owner then after that how that relationship works out. Whereas you're looking at the whole holistic view of the business and saying, well, actually, do you actually really need that person? Because you're asking it might seem obvious questions to you, Scott, but they're not obvious to the first time, for the employer that's first time employing this person. And it might not be a senior person they need. And we've seen this loads of time.
It's not. It's somebody that's, it's somebody you don't know that you need. Whether it be, I've had mums from school that come in that appreciate the fact that they can work from 10 till 3. And, you've got to look at that. You're going to get more value for money because they're going to be thankful for coming in. And you can create roles by finding an individual. If that person fits and they're a personality fit and they, buy into your values and you feel that there's somebody that can work with you, that you can trust, that you can build a relationship with, you can train them. That's the beauty of a lot of this stuff. It's not a ready-made answer that comes in a package. People seem to think that, I want X, Y, and Z. Can you go and get me that? Well, yeah, probably can, but we may have to work out which are the most important things in this. And just sit down and listen, because you'll tell me it. If I ask you the right questions, you'll give me the right answers, because it's only you telling me what you need. You know what you need, but it's just getting that information out of yourself.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, I suppose, and you're the expert in it, but, a lot of the clogs or a lot of the areas that are holding the business up are mostly administrative, from my experience. And, a really good PA, office manager, who can control the conversations that are not needed, to be had by you on a day-to-day basis, that are kind of, taking up your time, your valuable time, that are, taking the time away from you on the ground or you with a client, because, somebody wants to have a chat with you about, I don't know, signage or whatever. I'm not trying to put it down to mundane stuff, but a really good PA we found, or we've seen in the past, or office manager, is worth their weight in gold. They do all the heavy lifting. They shield the owner away from, distractions that they don't need to have.
They make things less personal as well. They take away that whole, it's your business, so you should be involved in stuff. And sometimes not knowing about something is actually pretty decent. You don't need to worry about something if that solution's been taken away again. You've got other stuff that's 10 times more worrying. It may have an effect on the cash flow. It may have effect on, whether or not you win that next project. Those extra times that somebody can take away those jobs that, whilst they're massively important, aren't important in the scheme of things. They can be taken away and dealt with by somebody else away from the front line of running that business. Your job as the owner, as the CEO, or whatever you want to kill yourself with, that is the person that brings in the work to enable, facilitates everybody else's workload in the rest of the business. And, it's so important that you have that person, that can, take away
all that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many, really successful small construction owners I've seen, and the amount of people that would say to you, well, he wouldn't be there where he is only for her, or and
it's like marriage as well. A lot of the time, again, you split it that way. There's certain jobs that people do, fair enough. Some of them might be stereotypical, but other times it's completely not. You never know until you've tried it. Somebody might be the best person at that. They think, I can't do that. They go in and they will, and it's uncovering that, and it's having the confidence to allow somebody to, take it on. It's having the confidence to let things go.
Yeah,
you don't need to control everything. What's the point? There's other people out there can do it far better than you can.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. And in terms of, it going wrong, let's have a discussion about, oh my God, I don't like this person. I can't gel with them. I can't make this fit. How do you navigate that process? In terms of, obviously you do a lot of due diligence up front, but there's only so much you can do, Scott. Someone might just not gel, or just not might connect with the employer. Is that something that you have a model for dealing with? Like, what's the caveats that people can probably put in place to say, right, I'm happy to take and absorb this person into my organization. I'm going to give it 100% my support. How do you navigate if the relationship breaks down? I
think they got to look inside themselves a lot of the time. I think if you think somebody you've got a problem with somebody else, the chances are they've got a problem with you as well. So it's not necessarily pointing the finger at somebody to say to them, right, I don't like this person, I don't like the way they're doing stuff. The reason that they're probably doing that is that they're seeing the same friction coming from the other side. And it's about communication, and, don't let things stew. If there is an issue, they may have not been explained how to do something. They may have gone off and done something because you've not told them that's not how you want to do it. It becomes a small issue that slowly gets into a bigger one, and then the communication breaks down. So, from day one, it's about having a plan for that new person, having a plan, make the onboarding the best experience, exceed their expectation when they turn up on first day, that their computer's ready, that they've got a pack of information that allows them to know where everything is from what to what. It doesn't matter, but it's that whole, they turn up in the morning, they go home in the evening and say, flipping out, that was good. They thought of everything there. And that sets off on the right footing. So if you're on the back foot, it's like anything. You go in there first day, oh God, they haven't done this, they haven't done that. That whole mentality is not right. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into. It's not just about, right, we're going to bring that person in they're going to solve our problem. You've got to explain the situation to them as well. You've got to explain to them what the problem is, how that problem needs to be dealt, and what it is that you're looking for from that person.
So, again, should I be looking at having a resource planning model in my business, even if I'm a small to medium enterprise? Should I have some sort of a labour forecast? Definitely.
I mean, again, the recruitment process is, 9 times out of 10, somebody comes to me and says, I need X, Y, and Z. Well, when do you need them? Well, about 3 weeks ago. Well, fair enough. That might well be the case, but we're now starting from scratch. I mean, the most normal recruitment process, if you're taking quantity surveyor, a project manager, somebody that's of a certain ilk, they've got 3 months notice. The whole interview process is going to take at least 3 or 4 weeks. So we're looking at 4 months already. So realistically, we need to be looking for somebody 6 months before they're actually required. That whole process needs to be, and that's what we've done sometimes as well. We've gone into businesses and, asked those questions, preempting when they're going to need people. When is the busiest time of the year? When have you got stuff that's coming in? When do you expect this project to land? What's in your order book? What's in the pipeline? It doesn't have to take that person, and we can actually get to a point where, we can start interviewing on the basis that we may be getting somebody through the door. It may be that person could be for 1 of 2 or 3 of projects, so it's, and it also puts you under so much more pressure when you don't know what you want or when you want them, because you'll accept the wrong person. It's not about kissing frogs. Giving somebody the time to actually go out there and do that search properly. Every search is the same. It's a blank piece of paper, whether it be an administrator all the way through to a senior director. You start with the same piece of paper, there's nothing on it, and you've got to ask certain questions to find out what that individual's about. You go through the list, you go through the whole process, and you just tick names off, or you add names on, and you create a persona, you create an avatar, for want of a better word, of the perfect person that you want, and then you go and search for them. And it doesn't matter what you're looking for, it's the same process, and it's so important that you get the right person to fill the right role. They've got the right traits, they've got the right personality, and planning is it's all about planning. It's being ready, and if you want the right people, spend some time on it. The most important people.
You'd probably drop your risk of a problem with the candidate by 50% if you had a good planning
Definitely,
schedule.
Because you can dig a bit deeper, you can ask a few more questions, but what you've got to also do is keep the process running, exceed the candidate's expectation at every stage. Give them the feedback they need. Give them the information that they require at the beginning, whether it be a perfectly formed job description. I think you mentioned this earlier on about the job description needs to be bang on, and that's not just the client's responsibility. That's my responsibility to drag out what they actually need from that. So that questioning process at the beginning. So it's not just about finding a person; it's about finding the right person, because you've got the right information, and loading those questions accordingly as well.
Yeah,
so important.
Again, that's credit to yourself, because if you do all that upfront due diligence, things then start falling into place, and then you start building trust within the relationship between you.
Very much so. But the advantage that I've got, and which which is priceless, is finding out about that person. You know, they're so much more relaxed with me than they would be with the person that's going to employ them. You know, I can ask some questions. I can delve deeper. I can be a bit cheeky. I can, ask whatever's required in certain respects to find out a bit more about them. How do they react to this? Which football team do they support? Are they a, family man? Have they got all the other bits and pieces that may, I'm not saying ask them, questions that possibly, deemed to be illegal or anything along those lines. It's more about finding out about them as a person, what makes them tick, some of the things that I can, identify and say, well, maybe if you ask him this question, and I'll give you an example of a guy that I spoke to this morning. He was seriously worried that he was misunderstood, but they would have seen him as a grumpy old so-and-so. But you break that down and make him aware of the fact that he's coming across as a grumpy old so-and-so. He's not. He was just questioning his worth. So if somebody had taken him straight away to an interview, they would have said, no, not him, he won't fit in. But once you break down that barrier with him and question that and allow people to understand what makes that guy tick, it all falls into place. You could have missed out on somebody because you've seen him. He fits the bill technically wise, but I'm not sure he's quite with it. But I've had that opportunity to meet that person, to understand what his personality is. And most people are genuinely nice people, and it's just getting to that nerves kick in. There's so many different things, having a bad day, or everybody's got different things that make them tick. And it's so important to find out, what they are before they start.
Yeah, I'm as you're talking there, I'm thinking I can imagine you when you're doing your reviews with the candidate, and I can just see you like a filing cabinet with different clients in mind. That person, you'll definitely fit that person. I've
not
definitely
a chance. Exactly. Yeah.
You're already putting them into their little categories and stuff like that. But you touched off a very good point as well, and we've seen this ourselves as well. Background checks and who you're getting into bed with, if you like, in terms of the background of these people, and some people not doing enough due diligence, and finding out then that it's too late that there was a police case or criminal case, social media blow up about the individual or whatever else. I'd like you to give us some feedback in terms of how people should protect themselves from, that type of a scenario where the person might be the best person for the job, but they mightn't be the best person.
Yeah, I think you've got to be very careful with this as well, especially nowadays with some of the bigger companies, that if you ask for a reference, you can't give a bad reference. You can only give a reference saying that this person worked here for a certain period of time, had carried out these tasks, and it's a very general approach, and you can't necessarily get that official report from the company. Okay. However, what you can do is ask for personal referees that the candidate will give, and you ask them the questions, and don't just accept one. If you can just dig a little bit deeper if you feel that they're offering somebody that's just going to give them a great reference, whatever, just ignore that one for now. Dig a little bit deeper. Ask them who their boss was on this project. You've obviously gone through their workload or wherever. And if you know somebody that's, worked with him previously, worked with her previously, or has some sort of link, it's worth teasing that information out of them to take that. And if you're going and you're using a recruiter or whatever else, don't just let the recruiter do that question and answer, and because they'll ask the questions what they want in some cases that, just tick a few boxes. Maybe if you don't want to give that phone call, I think it's so important that you do. Once that first call's been made, just do the general check. Are you prepared to give this guy a reference? And if you are, can I put you in touch with X, Y, or Z? Rather than just saying, yeah, he's great, I've spoken to this fella and he said, yeah, he's brilliant, you should take him. Now you give him a call now. I've spoken to him and got the first bit out of the way, but you give him a shout about, deep down, you don't have to go into detail about his personality or whatever, but just find out about his work. You'll tell from the tone of that individual's, responses whether or not. And it's so important that happens, because so many companies just say, nah, he looked all right. I knew a mate who knew him and he says says good things about him.
Yeah,
but, people will say something, but you won't necessarily get the right answer. You only get that answer when you get the true picture of the context and how they've actually answered those questions as well. That will take away so many of your issues. If in doubt, say no.
Well, the other thing is, I suppose if you speak to a past employer and they're not really giving you much feedback, they're kind of, well, yeah, he worked here or she worked here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, how did you get on? And kind of, it's very short answers. You kind of get a general gist that they're not really enthusiastic about giving over that information, I suppose. That should raise a red flag. And I think what we found as well in the past was, if there's any inkling of doubt, cut it out. Because if you
explore it a bit further,
says, I'm not 100% here,
take
there's
another
generally
reference.
something behind it.
Yeah, take another reference, just explore it and dig a bit deeper, or explore it with the candidate. That's the other thing. Okay, well, we've had a couple of reference checks and something has come up. Give them the opportunity. It's like you said, there's always two sides to a story as well. Something might have happened that they haven't dug deep enough on, and you can't necessarily make a decision. If it's everything else was fine, but something's just come up, explore it, dig into it a little bit deeper.
Is there a way of asking questions that's not against the rules, if you like? Could you ask a question hypothetically, like to say something like, hey, is there anything that you've done in your career that you're not 100% proud of, or that if you had time to go back, that you would rectify that issue?
Yeah, you can ask it in so many different ways. Yeah, is there anything? I don't know. Give them an example. Even if you've taken a reference, you've got some information, you can rephrase it in a certain way that, if you were in this scenario, what would you do? How would you? It doesn't have to be the same scenario. Have you ever, and then after they've said that, it's, have you been in a situation like that previously? And if they say no, that they're hiding something as well. It's not just necessarily, if they're not prepared to talk about it or not prepared to make an answer about it, but if they come up with the same description of what actually happened, and it's a slightly different story, that may be that there's two sides to that. But if they're refusing, or they don't bring it up, or they don't mention it when they've been clearly given an opportunity to do so, you'll know that there's possibly an issue underneath that.
There's something there. And from a sort of due diligence process, is social media reviews very active within your industry?
I would say not. Everybody's got, a friend who's taken a picture of a friend who's been out. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's not as if you're, depending on the circumstances of who you are, but, you to put yourself in a certain situation. If you've been in that situation previously and it could have happened, you've just got to look at the bigger picture. A social media photograph is a capture of a certain period of time that, sometimes people aren't proud of. Or it may be that that's their personality, or I don't get it, to be honest. I think, that needs to be removed. You've got a professional person, you've got a personal persona as well that, I think, you need to differentiate between the two in a lot of cases.
That's a brilliant point. That's a great point. However, I will say that just Googling somebody's name and, if it's in the public domain for the wrong reasons, it'll come up, rather than having to go through Facebooks and Instagrams.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, if you put, all you need to do is just literally put somebody's name in. If there's a case, if there's something come up, but invariably you'll know. In the industry you work in, it's not the biggest industry. In most cases, if you mention somebody, mention somebody in the workforce that you've got people there. If you've got a big enough company that you have other people in that business, question them. What's your work? If you worked with him in the past, what's he like? Whatever else. But you've just got to be careful, because it can be interpreted in different ways. You make sure you've got both sides of the story. That's all I say. It's just be open, honest, and just treat that information as it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said about putting the legwork in at the start, because it's, you know, if there's one thing out of this podcast, it's one of the most important thing is do the time to put into the recruitment process, because it's going to pay dividends at the end of it. And you're putting enough risk on the table by making this, you know, big decision, regardless of the seniority of the role. It's still a big decision for most.
I mean, but behind a piece of plant. I mean, if, for example, I mean, just imagine if you were, I don't know, groundworks contractor, and you were going to spend $100,000 on a new piece of equipment. You know, you're going to put some proper research into that. You're going to go and visit different places. You're going to speak to different people about it. You're going to speak to your mates about, you know, recommendations if you use this, or people that you've worked with. You know, you speak to your colleagues, and there'll be a lot of work. And you think about it. Most cases, people will do a lot more work on that than the most important people, which is the people within your business, don't even get half of that looking, or half of that amount of research. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Like, I like it. The more you talk, and I'm sure the listeners will think it as well. It's like, number one, Scott, you've got all the industry background in construction. You're living the conversations. You're living the language. You're living amongst all the, you know, go-getters in the industry. You know, they know you, you know them. You're constantly talking to people on a daily basis about what their career goals are, even if they don't want to move. They're still talking to you about how, you know, they're so happy in their current job or whatever else. But at least you have a playbook of people that are a pipeline. That's
very much so. And it's not even about that. A lot of the time it's about, I speak to some senior people, and what comes across from then, it's quite a lonely existence as well. You know, these guys at the top are, you know, leaders. But they've still got a family at home. They've still got kids at home. But if you're you know, let's go back to groundwork contractor or whatever. But if you're the man it's in a fair and reasonable size, you know, company, you know, you're the guy that drives a digger, or you're on the site, and you know, you rarely come across talking to the guy at the very top. But his job, as he's running the business, should be talking to those guys, understanding what they do, because you know, they look after his future, and he should be looking after theirs.
100%.
And a good leader needs to talk to them, and he would, I think in most cases, he would like his guys to come and speak to him. And I've said this to a lot of these CEOs, and the biggest problem that I hear from the blokes that on the face is they don't tell us anything. They don't think this, they don't think that. The guy at the top, he says, they don't come and speak to me. They don't do this, they don't do that. Whose responsibility is this to do that? And I'd say to the guy at the top, you're the one that's whinging that no one wants to talk to you. It's not their responsibility to come and bang on the door and tell you what they've been up to. It's, you know, you've employed them. You should be telling them what the next projects are. You should be telling how much they're respected and how much they're worth, and you know what a fantastic job they're doing. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, soft or anything along the lines. That it's just a cheers, mate. What a great job you've done. You know, really is appreciated, and I probably don't tell you that enough. And that would make so much difference. You know, yes, they would want a pay rise, or they want this, but most people just want to be appreciated that, you know, they've put a little bit of extra hard work in, and there's nothing better than receiving that, you know, pat on the back, whether it be from anybody. You know, somebody says thank you, or somebody smiles at you, or someone's been nice to you. It doesn't cost anything. And it's just basic, going back to the, you know, most basic things are the most appreciated things in most cases. It's not complicated. Just be nice to people. Yeah,
I love that. And you know, you're highly regarded by the big companies in construction in terms of what you can do for them. Do you see a opportunity for, you know, a small builder, construction owner to capitalize on, you know, your little black book, where you might have somebody that's been in the corporate ladder for years and decides, right, do you know what, Scott, I'd like to do something on a scale-up construction business everywhere, where I think I can add on my value.
That is probably one of the biggest things I get asked all of the time. I mean, that's something that's really stood out, and it's a fantastic question, because virtually guys that are looking to finish, the CEOs of, you know, big tier one contractors, guys that have got serious amount of experience, house builders, chairman, various different people, CFOs, they're coming towards their end of their careers and they want to give something back. Whilst they don't want to carry on with that full-on CFO, CEO, whatever C role it might be, they still want to do something within construction. They have got so much knowledge, and they want to give some stuff back, and they're not expensive. Everybody seems to think that it's going to cost you an absolute fortune to get one of these guys on as a non-exec. You know, if you think about, you know, you've got their time for a day, you know, I can't really give a figure, but it's nowhere near as much as you would think. And it's all on a case-by-case basis. But imagine having you know, we're talking to, say, groundworks again. You've got one of the senior leaders with one of the biggest groundwork contractors in the UK who's prepared to come in and talk to little old you for a day a week and go through some of your issues, look through what you're doing. How much can you take from that individual? You don't need to employ him.
Oh my God.
It'll blow your mind about, you know, and he cares. This is the big thing as well. He wouldn't be doing this if he didn't care. And there are so many people out there.
They're excited for you to win, to be successful. I totally get that. I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I'm actually even thinking I might even talk to you myself. But I think there's probably a niche in that area alone, that people that are struggling and that want to scale their business probably feel, or there isn't an awareness that they think that this opportunity presents itself to them.
Pretty much anybody.
But likewise, on the recruitment side of things, sorry to cross you, but on the recruitment side of things, I don't think there's agencies that sort of have tapped into that.
Yeah, don't. It's what I want to do, and there's a massive market for it. You know, there's guys out there and especially when you look at what's around the corner, you know, just look at the numbers, the people in the industries, you know, those guys that were born in the baby boomer times, you know, the guys that are, you know, coming up to 65, the guys that were born in the mid 60s are now leaving the industry. You know, when you start to get to 73, 74, that's when the birth weight drops down, you know, and it drops off a cliff. There wasn't the training being involved there, you know, the experience is not there. And then you get to the mid 80s, the late 80s, when you had another recession, then, you know, then people dropped out again from the industry and went elsewhere. You've also got the problem that, you know, people weren't being put through training because it cost additional cash, and you've got a massive gap. You know, those guys that are 45 to 55 now, and the trying to replace those guys that are between the 55 and 70, they're just not there. The quality's not there. And it's unbelievable. You've got guys that are still in their 80s owning companies because they haven't found somebody, even in the last 20 years, to take on that business. They don't trust anybody enough. And what a lot of these regional contractors are doing now are bringing in younger guys with potential to work with and mentor some of these guys with promise. They'll make them a managing director, and then they'll have a CEO. But he'll leave him alone for 3 days a week, and then he'll come in for a couple of days to see what's been going on. Where does he need some support? Where does he need some guidance? Have you got any questions? And if you can build that level of trust up with these guys, I can't tell some of these smaller companies take on board and learn from some of the best people out there. You know, they're great. Yeah. They really are fantastic.
And you're learning from leaders, leaders that had, you know. And it's not, don't think that, all right, they're going to bring all these relationships and they're going to get me tenders with all the big companies. And, you know, if you start thinking like that, that's not the approach. The approach is, what can I learn from this person? Yeah. How can I navigate through this whole mirage of risk and risk management within the business? And how do I scale the business? That's the value I would imagine.
They've had a career of ups and downs, and the bits that they want to focus on are the downs, the bits that they've struggled with. How did they achieve this? What did they do when this happened? Or, you know, anything. It could be, what do you do with an individual that's leaving, or an individual that's, I don't know, for want of a better, they've suddenly been removed from the business for illness, or, you know, something of no fault of their own. How do you replace that person? How do you, you know, stop that affecting your, just the whole process within your business? How can you save your business on the back of it if something like that happens? What do you do? Where do you go? Who do you ask? And, you know, they may even step up. You never know.
Scott, I think this has been amazing in terms of the value for, you know, why someone needs someone like yourself, how does somebody contact you?
They can either contact you, or they can, contact me. I've put my details on the system. Yeah, I mean.
So what we'll do is we'll put all your contact details in the show notes for anybody here that wants to get in touch with Scott. Like, even if it's just, and imagine, Scott, you don't charge for a discovery call or
I'll chat to anyone. I like a good chat, and it's you can always take something from every conversation, and you learn something from that's just the way I think everybody's got to take something. Every conversation, and sometimes the best things come from those conversations that come from nowhere. You've never really thought about. Somebody phones you, it's brilliant. Just take something from every conversation.
Brilliant, Scott. You're the legend, and look, I hope everybody that's listening takes an opportunity to get to know this guy, because he's one of these guys that's a disruptor in his own market, but he's going to make a major success and an impact for your business. So thanks very much, Scott.
No, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm good.